Welcome to Breaking Financial Chains, where we combine practical money guidance with emotional healing to help you break free from financial limitations. I'm Tanya Ibberson, your Financial Wingwoman.
Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Breaking Financial Chains. I'm so happy that you're here and ready to listen for some more gems around your finances. Today's episode is about defining your values around money, and essentially what really matters to you, and how we can then take steps to determine what that is for you, and then actually taking action and moving forward to get where you want to be. So the general theme is around values-based financial planning, which so often gets missed when we're following a cookie cutter approach, or somebody that is trying to shoehorn you into their ideas of what traditional financial planning looks like. We're going to get some clarity, and we're going to start giving some thought to emotional alignment and how that then fits in with your money and why that's super important. So where I want to start today is generally around spending. Money is, there's lots of things we can do with money. You've got money coming in, money going out. The money that goes out can go to different places. We can move it to different accounts, we can invest it, we can save it, we can spend it, we can give it away as well. But the spending is the focus for right now, because not all spending is created equally. You're not bad with money. It's probably just, if you're unhappy with your situation, if you're unhappy with where you are financially right now, it's probably more likely because you're just not aligned with what actually matters to you. So this episode is about trying to encourage you to explore what those values might be, how you find them for yourself, and then what can you do about it. So what? Once you've established what they are, do you just write them in a notebook and carry on and feel as though you've ticked something off that to-do list, or are we actually going to take action and make something happen and get something out of that in the long term? So as I've mentioned on a few episodes now, it's starting to get comfortable with the fact that financial clarity doesn't come from reading a textbook or following somebody else's idea of how they've achieved their financial freedom or their financial independence. It starts with emotional clarity within ourselves, and once we have that, we can then decide how to get where we want to be without compromising on who we are as an individual. Because all of those things will matter when it comes to where you spend and save your money, because otherwise they're going to feel misaligned. They're not going to be what is important to you. They're not going to be where you want to be, and they're not going to get you where you want to go. You're going to fall off the wagon. You're going to go off the beaten track because it doesn't align with your why, and it doesn't align with what's important to you. So if we could start to get all of these ducks in a row, things start to feel easier. We start to understand, because these actions that we're trying to take with our finances are aligned with our why, we understand what we're doing it for. It then becomes a lot easier to say no to the things that aren't going to get us where we want to go, or we know those don't align with what's important to us, and therefore it's wasted if we carry on that path. So values really, really matter from money. We often don't think of money as the commodity that it is. Essentially, we have money and we exchanged it for something else, a service or goods or something to eat, or to buy somebody, to pay for someone to support us within our business, as an example. So because we don't treat money like that, we treat money from an emotional point of view. So it then becomes an emotional thing that we're having to manage. And if we don't have a clear idea of where our emotions come from around money, it means that we can be all over the place. We can look at somebody who appears to have everything together and think, well, I want a bit of what that person's got. That Instagram carousel looks incredible, and I want to feel the way that photograph makes me feel just looking at it. But if that's not aligned with what's important to us, not only are we not going to achieve it, but we're also not going to get that feeling that we're chasing. So values are so very, very important when it comes to understanding what we're doing with our money. And when we know our values, we can stop copying everyone else's goals. Sod what somebody else wants to do with their money. What do you want to do? What is important to you? How can we take steps towards that vision and that future? And when we know what our values are, we can make decisions faster. There's less ambiguity, there's less uncertainty. Oh, I'm not sure, what do you think? Again, don't ask what someone else thinks. It's perfectly okay to ask for support and guidance and can you help me think this through? But you know the answer. You just maybe don't want to voice it, or you don't want to acknowledge what that is for you, because it might not line up with what somebody else's idea of clarity is or financial freedom is. But when we make those decisions faster, you have less guilt, and you can then spend more meaningfully, because we know that the money going out of our bank account and on our credit cards is something that's important to us and of value. It's okay to spend that money if it's aligned with what we want to achieve. If we don't have those values, we end up chasing more without knowing why, and we're going round in circles and we're not making progress, and we end up getting left behind or feeling like we're not achieving, which then leads to frustration, and on that downward spiral goes. So signs that you're out of alignment can often look like regrets after spending, even when it's not about the amount. It could be something that you buy and then you lose interest in very quickly and you lose it, or it sits languishing in a cupboard, or it could be something you throw away very quickly, or it's not very good quality. But it could be food, it could be alcohol choices, it could be something that you're spending money on out of an emotional need for being bored or loneliness or something else. And we instantly then still feel loneliness, we still feel bored. We don't have that fulfillment we thought that purchase was going to give us, so then we regret the spend. It can look like saying yes to things out of guilt or from pressure for somebody else. Perhaps you can't afford to do something, or you've been asked on a night out and you just think, do you know what, I would really rather just stay at home, light the fire and put my feet up with a good book rather than doing that. But you say yes because you feel pressure, because of the people around you, and because you don't understand what your values are. So you can't actually come up with a good reason why, or you don't feel strong enough to stand in your own circle and say, no, that's not for me, thank you, that sounds like the worst idea possible. You go ahead and enjoy yourselves and tell me all about it the next time I see you, or the next time I speak to you. And if we're out of alignment as well, it can look like constant friction in money conversations with others. So if you have joint finances and family finances that you have to consider, if we're not making aligned decisions with our money, if we're not having those conversations with significant others, then you can both be at cross purposes, which creates more arguments and problems. Whereas if we just have that conversation earlier on, or not even earlier on, obviously we can't go back and reinvent the wheel, but we can start from now and say, okay, I think it would be really useful to talk about what it is that we want to achieve longer term. We've just bought this house, what it is that we want the finished house to look like, how does it feel for us, and therefore what are our priorities for the budget that we have for renovating the house. Talking about retirement, for example, with your other half, what does that look like for you? Do you ever plan to actually retire, or is it more like a semi-retirement? And so long as you're both on the same page, that's great. If you're not, it's something that needs to be communicated, and then together you can work a way through and towards that goal, so that neither of you feel compromised or ignored, or not then part of that end decision, which is super important, particularly because we don't want to create arguments, do we, and struggle through friction. So what we need to do is think about examples of values, and there's common values and projected values. So common values, or real values if you like, are things such as security. So is security something that's important to you? It's probably important to everybody, but what security is probably means different things to different people. So ask yourself, is security something that's a really important value for you? Freedom is another example. Generosity, trust, adventure, impact, legacy. These are all examples of values that you can think about which sit with you, which feel something that you're familiar with, which feel as though there's something that you actually would favour over something else. Fairness might be another value that you hold dear, and fairness is a big value of mine. So working in the accountancy field for many years, 27 years I've been doing that, I really struggle, for example, with the UK tax system, because I don't feel it's a very fair system. I don't feel that it's well explained. I don't feel that the rules are accessible. I don't feel that it's right that people have to pay professionals to be able to get the best or the most out of tax efficiencies for running their business. That said, I wouldn't earn an income, I wouldn't have earned my money if it wasn't for giving that advice. So I have to balance those two out quite carefully, at the same time as making sure I'm following the rules. I might not agree with the rules, but if we don't follow the rules, then we can end up in prison, and that's not something that I would wish on anybody either. But the fairness value is something that I constantly feel at loggerheads with in my profession as an accountant. And it's probably a big reason why I'm favouring a shift towards the coaching side, doing this podcast for you and sharing this knowledge, because that is absolutely where I see longer term my business going and my time and energy going, to be able to share more content like this. Projected values, on the other hand, is the difference between your values and then what society, your parents, your Instagram feed tells you should be your values. So that's about following what somebody else thinks they should do. And it may well be that they don't believe it either, but it's a should. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. They should be doing certain things. They should be putting themselves in a certain position financially. Sod that. What is it that you want? What actually sits right with you and is true to you from a values point of view, rather than what somebody else is trying to push and project onto you. So some examples of these values in action might be, if you value freedom, why are you locked into rigid expenses, rigid monthly subscriptions, a high mortgage payment, for example? If you value freedom, then perhaps you could make a shift towards where your money goes, or where you live, or how you live your life, to give you more of that freedom. It may be that you can't just stop those payments, which is perfectly feasible, but it might be that you could build in temporary freedom some of the time to give you an example of what that feels and looks like, so for you to then gradually make the shift towards more freedom and less rigidity, if that's something that is of importance to you. If security is of a higher value than freedom, then we would work towards the security, and freedom would come slightly lower down on that priority list. Maybe you have a list of a few things, but you then prioritise them in the order that suits you. If you value creativity, does your budget include room for that? Include room to buy art supplies, to take trips, go on art retreats, go on weekends away so that you can paint the landscape, or whatever that might look like. If you value family, how does your money support time together, instead of just work to build something that you're not actually getting that valuable family time, if that's something that's of most importance to you. And again, this can be something that you work towards, provided it is something that you keep in your vision. So I can work hard now to build more freedom. I can work hard now to record more podcast episodes on a Sunday morning, which is what I'm doing right now, in order to be able to spend more time with my family later, because the work is done now. I'm recording 4 or 5 episodes in one go, so that I'm not sitting here every Sunday recording a podcast episode. So it changes the decisions that we make, it changes the actions that we take, and it changes the planning that we need to put into place to be able to achieve that. So a great way to discover your financial values, if these don't immediately just jump off the page at you. And when I was first introduced to understanding what my values were, it was probably about 4 or 5 years ago now, I found it really difficult. I was presented with a list of examples of values, and you just sort of scan your eyes down the list and go, well, yeah, I guess that's more important than that one. Or truth, trust and fairness are probably my 3 most important values. But that doesn't mean to say I don't value security and family and rest. It's important to be able to, what order of importance are they for you? And it's okay for yours to be different to everybody's around you. But I do love a journaling prompt, so I've got 3 for you today as a special treat. So journal prompt number 1: when I spend money and feel great about it, what's really being honoured? Is it because I feel really proud to be able to support a small independent business rather than buying something from a big supermarket such as Tesco's or Sainsbury's or Asda? When you spend money and feel great about it, is it because you're investing in something that is going to grow in value? It's going to be something that you can look forward to in the weeks, months and years to come. What is it that's important to you? What do I resent spending money on, and why? So this is almost the flip side of the first prompt. If we feel guilt afterwards, what is it that we feel guilty about? Is it because we feel we've wasted it? Is it because we feel we didn't perhaps make the best choice? So what is it that's important to us that we're not honouring with money that we resent spending? And then, what did I grow up being told to value, and do I agree? So were you told that you had to cut your cloth to your means? That was one of my grandma's favourite sayings. You have to cut your cloth to your means, which meant she never borrowed money. It was something that you had to have the money to then spend what you have, and if you didn't have enough for what you wanted, you saved more before you spent your money. Or were you told that you had to always save for retirement, so that meant that you had to spend a lot less and be a little bit more selfless throughout life so that you had those funds at retirement? If that's not a value for you, then that's okay. It may well be that you would actually like to enjoy living your life as you're living it, rather than waiting until you're 60 plus to be able to enjoy the fruits of your labour that you've worked so hard for. So many people don't actually make it to that milestone age in life. So is that something that you're prepared to risk? Where does that sit in your values base? Another example of something you could do is to list your top 3 to 5 values once you feel that you've got there, and define what they look like in your day-to-day spending. So your values can change, your values can be added to. You can realise that you have more values as you work through this exercise, or perhaps you discuss this with a friend, and you can change them. These can be adapted. Nothing is ever set in stone with things like this. We get to understand and explore what's important to us as we go on this journey. So this is not about making a hard and fast concrete decision right now that you're stuck with forever. This is about exploring what's important to you. And what we then get to do once we establish what those values are is that we can use them as a filter. It's about then, it's a way of automating your responses to certain things, because if we can start to understand what's important to us, we get to say no to something without guilt, because that's just not important to me. That's just not on my radar right now. I don't want to spend that money on a weekend away because actually I'm saving for being able to buy my eldest child a new car for their birthday, so that doesn't fit in with my values and what's important to me. Or it might be that an opportunity has come to travel or have a weekend away with your other half, and because that time with family is of most important to you, well then that other priority gets dropped down a notch or two, because it's important to take the opportunity for time for just you with your other half, instead of always ploughing towards the goals that you initially set for yourself. It's okay for these things to move. These values, once we establish what they are, let them guide your savings, earnings and investing decisions. So what companies are you investing in? What do they stand for? What actions are those companies taking for things like environmental matters, and do they look after their staff, and do they reinvest in green renewable energy, as an example? If that's one of your important values, well then you may prioritise investing in a company that does that, instead of a company that just looks to make as high amount of profit as possible to maximise returns for shareholders. It might determine whether you save more or save slightly less because you want to live more in the life right now. It might mean that you decide, you know what, this job that I'm doing or this business that I'm running is literally draining my soul away, and I want to have more time with family, therefore I'm going to cut back my hours. And I'm going to accept that that means I earn less because it gives me more of what I value so much more. The best thing about understanding what these values are and using them as a filter is that they help to simplify life. Life is busy, right? Life is hard. There's so many things that are going on. But when we get clear on what's important to us and who we are, this side of those decisions gets so much easier. You stop chasing everything and anything that comes along, and you get to focus on what matters. So to close down this episode, I want to highlight for you, just as a bit of a summary, money alignment isn't about restriction. It's about permission to spend, save, build in a way that reflects you, rather than what you've been told you should have and should do. And when your money honours your values, it feels lighter. It feels so much more powerful, and it doesn't become the yoke that sits around your neck as something that you carry or something that you dread dealing with. We get to use it as the tool that it is to help us have more of those value-driven experiences and a value-driven life, right? So that we get to be true to ourselves. So if you have any light bulb moments from this episode, I would love you to let me know. And thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for joining me today on Breaking Financial Chains. Remember, you have the power to transform your relationship with money one step at a time. If this episode helped you, please subscribe and leave a review to help others find their path to financial freedom. I'm Tanya, your Financial Wingwoman, and I'll see you next week.